Aaron Monaghan, welcome to the virtual RedFM studio. How are you?
I'm very well, Dave. Thanks for having me.
It's not the first time we've spoken. I had a chat with you when Cork Film Festival screened this film, Redemption of a Rogue, as part of its film club, and which means, in a rare occasion, I'm speaking to someone about content that they're in that I've actually seen. I know. It's a big one for me too. So for once, I'm not going to be spoofing. But even if I was, I promise you, Aaron, you wouldn't have known. Look, I loved the film. It was really enjoyable. Now it's about getting audiences in to see that and getting the word to spread. Tell us from your perspective what Redemption of a Rogue is all about and what people will see when they enter into the dark, murky world of West Cavan.
Redemption of a Rogue is described on the page as a blues opera, whatever a blues opera might mean to your listeners. But it's a black comedy. It's a new Irish film, and it's all about a man who returns to his West Cavan home, who is in a pretty bad way, fairly depressed, and he decides that he's going to come back and deal with some old ghosts for the last day of his life. And things just don't go quite according to plan. His father dies, unfortunately, and kind of stops him in his tracks. And it's about redemption, I suppose, and it's about finding hope in a very, very dark place. He comes across a collection of very, very absurd, very, very funny, small town Irish typical characters, and maybe finds a little bit of love in the middle of that too.
Tell me about some of those quirky characters that you encounter, but also let's emphasize that this is a black comedy and there's a lot of humor in it. And it's also very much a labor of love for the director who wrote the screenplay, Philip Doherty. So I know you know the intricacies of that whole story. So maybe give us a little bit of that. We'll get to the characters in a minute. Let's start with the Philip Doherty labor of love that this is. And even kudos to Cavan County Council for backing his dream and his vision. Go on, Cavan County Council.
Absolutely. I can't think of it. It's one of my proudest moments to see coming up on the title screen, Cavan County Council. I can't think of the county council that funded an entire film. Yeah, Philip is a legend. He we've known each other since we were 15 in Cavan. We went to youth drama together. And he kind of spent a bit of time in his 20s traveling the world and kind of came back to Cavan occasionally. And so it's a very personal experience of him returning to his hometown. And it's a very, very real and lived experience. So he sees these characters and he puts them on the page. But he did this phenomenal thing where he and a collection of other artists, they built up this huge Cavan art scene that kind of exploded. I mean, it's around the same time that people like, the Stripes and Lisa O'Neill and, they all came out of Cavan at the same time. So they were kind of riding this wave of artistic creativity. And it kind of culminated, I suppose. He built this army around him of amazing artists and creative people, and he managed to get a budget of €45,000, which sounds like a lot of money.
It does not sound like a lot of money when it comes to making a movie whatsoever.
Yeah. Absolutely. I was saying to people, like, I've been on sets where that amount of money wouldn't cover the budget for coffee, to make an entire movie of that. Like, it's incredible. And it's a film where it takes place, 80% of the film takes place in rain. I think they priced it what it would cost for a rain machine, and they would have blown the entire budget on the rain machine alone in 2 days. So he kind of just managed to do this. So it was a labor of love for everybody involved. He managed to get this incredible cast, this incredible crew, this amazing team of producers and creative artists to make it. Made it in 21 days. It rains. We made it rain every day and kind of just, managed to get it over the line. And it was so good. In the first cut of it was so good. It was so impressive that Screen Ireland managed to give them some money for the post-production of it, which is kind of a first, really. That they hadn't been involved in the pre-production or the production of it, but they kind of felt that the quality of the film was so good that they came on board with that. So that was a real kind of positive shot in the arm for us, and it is what it is now today. It's kind of this phenomenally, I think it's going to be a cult classic. I really do.
Yeah, I really hope it. I really hope it does reach that status, as it deserves it. Because even as you're telling me about it, I'm remembering having seen the film, and what struck me about it was like the incredible level of detail and care and attention that gone into how it looked, the way it was lit. Now, I mean, all of those things are things any film has to do. So it's not as if, but whoever he worked with, I mean, you mentioned this like strong artistic community of people. But they all brought a really strong flavor to how it looked, to the way it was set design, to the costumes of the characters, but the music, the mood, like really all of the elements were incredibly detailed.
Yeah, and they were all there from the very beginning, Dave. I mean, it was there on the page, you know, little transitions. Like, you know, I remember we talked a lot about like influences on the film. So there are big influences like Tarantino and the Coen brothers and stuff like that. It's the film is dripping with those type of references and influences and stuff. But stuff like the editing of like, he would write in sequences and edits that are straight out of the Edgar Wright school of filmmaking, and you know. There are things in the film that like any other producers or production designers or whatever, they would say that can't really be done, that's not really going to work. But because Philip was working with his team, they were like, that's going to be really hard to do, let's figure out how to do that. So even like going to like, it was never a question that it was going to rain for 80% of the film. Not only did they make their own rain machines by getting the fire service in Cavan and a team of plumbers together, they managed to make 3 rain machines, one of which covered an entire street in the town, so that in the final sequence where, you know, one of the final sequences, my character's getting beaten up in the middle of a street by a host, by the entire town. Everybody on that street got soaking wet with this rain. So like there was no, that can't be done. It was always a thing of we will get it done. And he had written all, and even the music, it's a film that is like kind of just dripping in music. So he had a composer very, very early on making the music kind of tonally what you know, it was played back on set, like it was written at that point. We got to hear it. It was there on playback. So you got to feel how this music, how this film was going to sound on set. And that just all helped. And all because he had this army of creative people who were on from the get-go. And then he kind of brought on this like amazing, apart from this amazing cast that he brought on, he had this guy called Bershi Weinar, who is this incredible cinematographer who shot it in this widescreen thing with anamorphic lens, just made every shot look stunning. And I'm not going to lie, like it was a film that we shot in 21 days. I don't know how we did it. And it was really, really hard because we were getting soaking wet every day. But no matter how hard and how miserable and how cold and wet we got, like I would just look at the monitor every day and see what Bershi had got. And it was just like, I just keep going. I can't wait to get the next shot in the can. So there was this real labor of love, community aspect to the film, and that kind of got it over the line.
And just because we have talked about it raining all the time and how miserable it was, let's again emphasize that even though there's a dark tone to the whole structure of this film, obviously like all films, there's some beautiful warmth and love at its heart, but it's bloody funny. Let's make sure that anybody watching this understands that they're going to see a really well-made Irish film. Like actually all of the elements are you know, kind of top notch. Like, sorry, just even when you were talking about the music, I won't say where or when it happens, but there's even one scene where there's a boat drifts along, like it looks like a bayou in the swamps, and they're playing music on the boat. It's just very cleverly done, all of the little details and all of the elements. But a real labor of love and real thought into all the elements. The screenplay is really strong. The performances are really strong. That's where we get back into you. And let's remind people that it's a funny, funny film that they're going to enjoy. And as you mentioned, potentially an Irish cult classic, let's hope, and one that they will recall, remember, and rewatch again, and hopefully tell others about. But let's go into some of those characters and some of the humor, just so that people know the misery and the rain, and they kind of don't kind of go, oh, Jesus, I don't want to watch that.
Well, I think that's the purpose as well, that like if Philip labors it from the get-go with so much misery, it can only go to a very, very funny place. It's about a guy who wants to die, and like at the very, like one of the first scenes,
he keeps getting thwarted in his ambitions.
Exactly. The only thing he wants to achieve,
he can't even do that.
And it sounds like, you know, suicide is not a subject to be laughed at, but like as you know, it's coming from a personal place with Philip. You know, we talked a lot about the fact that, like, whether it's grief or whether it's like true depression, you know, when you're in those really, really dark places, the world is just a very, very absurd place when you're in that mood. Like, it's things like, you know, how can you go out the door and sit under a tree? How can you eat an apple? Just normal things just seem absurd. And that's where the character starts out. But like, it is a really, really uplifting story because he has to kind of fight through that, and he has to find some sort of purpose in the end, and he has to maybe even find love. So it's, in many ways, it's a classic. It's a classic story. It just starts from a very, very dark place. But I think the Irish. Go ahead.
Well, what I forgot about it is that you're coming home to bury your dad, but then it goes wrong, and he can't be buried. And everybody in the town is eager to get him buried because the rain won't stop until he's in the ground. Isn't that it? And even that's exactly not going well.
No, nothing in this thing goes well for him. You know, like he's going in on the first day. He's going in to buy a rope. You know, it's one of the most funny exchanges I've ever had to film in a film. It's so hilarious. But yeah, he comes home essentially to bury himself, but his dad's death gets in the way of that. And it's literally, as soon as his dad dies, it starts raining, and his dad can't be buried until it stops raining. So it rains for pretty much 40 days and 40 nights. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous, you know. But I think, like, you know, it's again, it's a black comedy, and I can't think of a nation or a psyche in the world that is better fitted to dark comedy than the Irish psyche. You know, we know about rain, we know about funerals and death, we know how to laugh at ourselves. It's our way of dealing with the world around us.
But even sort of the rural hinterland where this is brought to is no better place in the world for these sorts of characters to come out. So just as a finish, Aaron, and thank you very much for your time. Redemption of a Rogue is the film. Aaron Monaghan, Aisling O'Meara, Kieran Roach, Pat McCabe, Shane Connaughton amongst the cast that feature in this beautifully timed 90-minute fun, dark film that you'll talk about and remember. Talk to me about some of those characters, who they are and who plays them, and what's good about them.
Yeah, I mean, what you will find is, like, these characters, they're small town characters. It doesn't matter whether it's Cavan or West Cork. They're characters that everybody will recognize. They're truly just bizarre Irish characters. I play the man at the center of it, who's kind of very down and very depressed.
The town's football hero, but you'd gone like that. It was the best and last greatest thing you'd ever done.
Exactly. There's some dodgy dealings with the GAA, who we all know, whether it's Cavan or Cork, the GAA run the town. They are the mafiosa. And so he does some dodgy dealings, and he kind of hightails it at a time, but he has the nerve to show his neck and comes back, and just like, as crazy a film as it is, I actually play the straight guy. Everybody around me.
The sane one. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's the bizarre thing. And what I love about it is there's this theme running through it. It sounds blasphemous and it sounds irrelevant, but it's anything but that. Philip kind of manages to weave in all these sort of religious elements. So there's the idea of the prodigal son and the father dying and the legacy. And he meets Masha, who is superbly played by Aisling O'Meara, without a doubt one of our finest actors, who's kind of playing this sort of outcast, you know, nearly sexually deviant Mary Magdalene type character. And the fact that I'm playing Jimmy Cullen, who is JC, and, you know, the Virgin Mary statue, you know, kind of comes alive and starts talking to him and says, "Can I have a fag, Jimmy?" You know, there's all these kind of brilliant
little illusions.
Oh, amazing! It's magic realism, and I think that's what's so wonderful about the film. That's that type of state that you talk about when you are in those kind of really dark, whether it's grief or whatever. You know, it's funny. I think laughter and grief are very, very close together. So anybody who's ever been there, Philip uses black comedy as just a way of making sense of those places. And I've shown the hilarity and the ridiculousness that you find in any small town in Ireland.
But even in you just saying that just reminds me of, and again, that I'm not sure if I've expressed it properly or well enough, but it's that level of thought into every element of the film, and not overthought. because you could go too far with it. Just really cleverly done, really well balanced, and a really fun film, and a really strong performance from you in the main role. Well done. And I'd encourage people to, you know, sometimes you say stuff like support Irish cinema, blah, blah, blah. Just go and enjoy a really great movie.
Thank you, and particularly go and enjoy one now that we're back in the cinemas. I mean, it did really well at the Galway Film Fleadh last year. I know it played Cork as well last year, and it won the 2 Best Feature awards in the Fleadh, which we were just like so delighted about. But we've had to wait now. Like I'm kind of glad that they didn't release it any sooner. I'm glad now that we can see it with on the big screen finally, with because it's a film that needs to be seen in the cinema. I think it's so cinematic, it's so widescreen, it's so large scale, it's colorful, it's funny, it's noisy, it's got this amazing soundtrack. So I'm kind of glad that they waited like just over a year to release it, and I'm so excited to see it now tonight on the big screen.
I hope it goes really well. Redemption of a Rogue. Go see it and enjoy it.
Thank you so much, Dave.
Thank you, Aaron Monaghan.